Hi, this is Brad Dyke saying hi to everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. The reason why I was reaching out to you today is to talk about a next phase of my data center's rebuild process. One thing I want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not something you do on the fly. As you've noticed over a period of time, I've been slowly and methodically working through processes and identifying what needs to be exchanged, what are the parts, pieces, what do I need to buy, and so on and so on. Now, the greatest way to do that, and this is the focal point of this particular video, is the secret weapon of doing your own home lab or data center: documentation. That's right. Take the time, get yourself out your trusty notepad, start the process of documenting your structures, documenting how things are going to flow. Documentation, documentation, documentation. Why is that so important? Well, you have to understand that infrastructure pictures represent who and what you are. And, a manager or a leader or somebody like that who sees somebody who takes the time to draft out an idea, to vet it, to identify those flaws, mistakes, means that they're saving money. Well, you're a manager at your own home lab. So this helps you understand the nature of how identifying risks, identifying mistakes, identifying unnecessary equipment that you need to buy. Just basically in a nutshell, giving you a chance to do a dry run or a practice run or a test run in your own lab. It's a great habit to have. You can't go wrong with the process of documentation. With that being said, the next thing to talk about is the nature of documentation. There are two kinds of documentation, and it's based on you. Do what works best for you, number one. So in this case, I decided, because I was transitioning to Mint Linux from Microsoft Windows, I didn't have access to Visio, which is a digital version of doing infrastructure diagrams and documentation. We'll go over that in a minute. So instead, I went to using what we call a graph paper style approach. And you know what? It worked pretty good because I could go back and do some modifications on the fly without having to reformat the information. Another way that which, in regards to this, is functional is that you diagram by either internet infrastructure tools or with like Microsoft Visio. You can use these based on what you find on the internet, and you know what? It does work. But at the same point in time, you're required to be back at a PC to make your updates, changes, and modifications. So, with that being said, I'm going to recommend this. First, take the time with a pencil or a pen and draft out your idea on a notepad. And then, as you begin to plan out your resources, build to what we call a final design. Usually it takes 2 or 3 modifications, but you'll eventually come to the point where you're going to be able to do what you want to do, and that is to be able to get that grasp that you want to do when it comes to the bandwidth requirements. So with that being the case, you turn around and you will finalize your design. At that point in stage, then turn it into a printable diagram that you can put on your PC. That way your efforts for documentation electronically wise is going to be a benefit with one set of actions, opposed to just keep constantly going in and updating. And if you've ever worked with Excel spreadsheets and floor model diagrams and so on and so on and so on, that can be very daunting over time. But in the sense of what is a great, Visio or Visio-like tool that you can do in regards to diagramming, well, obviously Microsoft Visio is one of them, absolutely. You have also other resources out there such as SmartDraw, and you have Librato, which is an alternative that like Lucidchart. Look those up. I'll provide those in the link down below. But like I said, it's a combination of both strategies that get you to that end goal. Number one, take your notepad with you anywhere you want to go, make your updates and changes and so on, so you get yourself to a good manageable level. Number two, break down each classification of your infrastructure, your servers, your communications, and so on in different phases. That way, when you document them, that you'll have basically 4 or 5 phased documented formats. With that being said, the end goal is not to have a giant picture that looks gobbledygook and unreadable. The goal is to have a series of let's say PDF, or for instance, you want to print them out in a large page format. You can do that. And this is what I got today, and this is what I can do, and that's a great way of planning your future tests or applications that you want to try to use, and so on. But at the point where you are doing the work itself, the nice thing also is to get yourself to the point where you've done the notepad, you've got all your sheets of paperwork done, and now you've made your final diagrams. Print the diagrams out in 8x11 format, put them on a clipboard, and keep it with you, because you're going to make changes on the fly. Now, these are what we call post-diagram changes. Make sure that you track those and that they get back into the main document. And this is going to teach you a trick that we use in the industry under guidelines such as ITIL, CONOPS, or contingency operations plans, and so on. And that is that you're in the habit of refreshing your documentation as you go forward. People understand that part of this is having fun and just putting stuff together, and so on and so on. But your small home lab or your enterprise environment is one of those things that lets you do that. So just give it a little extra kick and document what you've got. And it really does help you down the road identify what you think the next thing you want to do, because you can sit down and contemplate the idea of your print-ups and think, hey, you know what? I could do DevOps. I could do a sample DevOps model here, or I could do a FinOps. I can kick back financial models to the cost I'm spending, or I can do an AppSSE or an API launcher, or I could do a variety of different things. The whole key thing is that you broaden the spectrums of what you can do today for what you can do tomorrow. With this, I just wanted to document to you what I do to get me to each new level. Now, I am a professional architect and operations director of sorts. That's my day job. So I instill in other people these very responsibilities in their day jobs, but I also kind of help them have some fun at home with their home labs. So it does bleed over into your day job, and that's something that I think you'll find valuable because it gives you a discipline. And this is one of the key disciplines of doing any type of operational role, is that you are dealing with the documentation side of the equation. So don't forget to do design, create, adjust, and then finalize your documentation per each implementation. And by the way, as a side note, to turn your home lab into a DevOps home lab is very simple. You have a contiguous and continuous process of loading your applications, doing smaller, more incremental updates to your equipment and resources in a regimental format that is being processed by you, monitored by you, to feel out the resolutions that need to be addressed after doing so, and then rinse and repeat. Opposed to the old days of operations where we had done just giant updates and cross our fingers, let's hope we don't have too many issues with bugs and things like that. ConOps allows you to reduce it, make it into a more stepping process that allows you to have lesser impacts, better overall eyesight on everything you're trying to do, as well as getting good feedback as you incrementally do those works. So that's something you might want to consider doing. It's not difficult. You don't have to have all the tools in the world. All you have to have is an application or an API, or maybe a little piece of code you write for websites or stuff like that. You can use it. You can also use it for refreshing websites, doing code updates to change one site to another. Automation is the biggest value, because automation is a key component in our future. Well, this is Brad Dyke signing off. I don't want to get too winded, because I could go down avenues you don't want me to go down in a professional sense, where I'm trying to keep this as home value sense as possible. God bless, and please keep having fun.